Good afternoon, Muskegon. How you doing? It's February 4th, 2022. This is 22, your show for news, information, and more. How you doing, Muskegon? I'm your host, Gregory T. Roberts. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be talking about Black history in a different way, in a different light. First, we're going to inform you about why it was started, but we got a different perspective on Black history, and I think you need to hear it out. Okay. I want to thank 103.7 The Beat, and 106, Lady J, producer, PA, Big Rob, Q, all the things that they do. Also, there, there's a commercial on an app that you really need to get. It's UG, and it means unity in African. That app that we have a commercial on, which we'll play at maybe down at the bottom of the hour. If you like gospel, it has an app that has all the radio stations like ours, to hip hop, gospel, jazz, whatever, on your phone, and you can take that everywhere. It is a great app. And also, you can catch the video torn into on there, as well as some of the videos that are on that app. I want to say something. No. I want to get my brother on the calls. And we go through a lot. Fridays around here, boy, it's like the Three Stooges. But we get stuff on. Let me get my co-host, Pastor Melvin C. Burns, one of the two twins. How you doing, sir?
Good afternoon, my brother. How are you?
Good. We were just dealing with a lot of stuff earlier, but we got it done. The show must go on.
It must. I'm here.
You're here. I appreciate it. We had promised you Terrence Williams was going to be on the show. He's going to be on next week's show. So for all you people that were looking for Terrence Williams, he will be on the show next week. He lives in LA. He has a new child, of course, married, and he just moved in a new house. So we'll give him some grace, and we'll get him on next week. If you're listening to us, thank you very much. But if you have questions or your opinion, please go to our Facebook sites at M106 or 103.7 to be WVS. One other thing, if you have an event or you have information or topic that you would like to be addressed, take a pen down. I'm going to give you 2 seconds to get a pen. 1, 2. Okay, get a pen, get some paper. 231-727-5007. 231-727-5007 is the number to our main line. And you can ask for Lady J, and she's the producer of the show, and tell her that topic that you want to address, and we'll get it on and get somebody on as well. We might also have some other guests on as well, so we'll see what happens. Before I go on to talk about today's topic, normally I save this segment for the last part of the show, but I feel compelled to talk to you, Pastor, about what I'm feeling right now.
Okay.
Every day I'm finding out that a close friend, or someone I knew or somebody I grew up passed away. And when I mean every day, I mean almost every day. There's a funeral, or there's some kid that I coached that their mother passed away. And wait a minute. Let me before I finish that. Let me get this guy on. He serves as a co-host and host of his own shows, but him and I have been co-hosting elections and doing stuff for a long time. Put your hands together for Jon Convington. Welcome him to the show. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, Kings. How you guys doing? Good to see you both.
Professor Convington, good to see you.
Professor Covington, you looking good with the beard. Although I don't know how yours is not gray, but you looking good, brother.
It's great. I cheat sometime and sometime I don't. So if you just do that, notice that? It's like magic.
All right. I want to finish what I was talking about real quick. Every day I'm getting phone calls, and my brothers can speak on this, of somebody who's passed. And you are not promised tomorrow. Listen to me. I just heard of a friend that died, 61 years old, massive heart attack. You guys are kind of forgetting that language because we've heard COVID. Okay. I'm hurt, but I want you to understand, people, that you are not promised tomorrow. So if there's anything that you have to do, make up with a family member or whatever, make it up, do it today. Sow that seed today. Don't wait till tomorrow. Brothers, you want to join in on this?
You know, bro, we talked about that last week, and again, I don't know if it's just a function of age, but you do, hopefully people are seeing and feeling the urgency of forgiveness, building relationships, renewing relationships. It sounds like a cliche just to say not tomorrow's not promised, but again, it just seems we're seeing how much more it's important for us to do these things now. I'm like you, the rate at which I'm seeing people pass that I know it's almost overwhelming.
Jon?
I agree. Really nothing more for me to add to that. I totally agree. And I think just in this whole period, this whole pandemic thing, and you add all that and you combine the normal, how death normally is, and then you add the pandemic numbers, and we all know somebody who has passed from complications of COVID-19. And it's just all like adding up. It's just all piling up on us. And I think our mental and all that. And tomorrow's not promised. The rest of the day is not promised. I've had conversations with people, and an hour later, somebody is saying, "Rest in peace, so-and-so." I'm like, what do you mean? I just spoke with them, not yesterday. I just spoke with them today. So tomorrow's not promised. The next minute is not promised. The next 30 seconds aren't promised. And so I believe we should live. Not that there's not another life. I'm not saying that, but while I'm here with this one, I'm going to make the best of this one.
Yes.
I appreciate that. I was talking to a couple of brothers that normally we can call and get online for commentary on issues and stuff like that, and everybody's doing funerals. They're doing funerals. Everybody's at a funeral, got to go to a funeral, or they're doing a funeral. And so people, listen to me. I only wish that I had my mom, my dad, and my grandmother. They're all gone. Don't let something so simple keep you away from those relationships, please. All right, with that said, we're going to get into the issue today of Black history. I wanted Jon to come on to join Melvin and talk about this. He does a lot with Black history. Let's talk about Carter G. Woodson, who introduced this thought of something being celebrated year-round. He is the father of Black history. In 1926, he wanted to design something, a time to promote education, educate people about Black history and culture. It was first recognized by President Gerald R. Ford, officially recognized Black History Month during the country's 1976 bicentennial. for a call for Americans to seize the opportunity to honor. Yeah, I hear that. To honor too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout the history. Now, why was February chose? February was chose because it was the birthday between President Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. And so he figured out a week. It was a week where they could recognize both of those people for what they did for slavery, and that week would go on. This year's theme for Black History is Black Health and Wellness. Pay homage to medical scholars and healthcare providers. The theme is especially timely as we enter the third year of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has affected minority communities especially. Now, with all that information said, is there anything you guys want to say before I make this point?
Yeah, I got a little factoid. You know, I'm always sharing. Often I share my journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I actually was in a PBS special with Gerald R. Ford when I was 11 years old.
Really?
Is that right?
I was at, and they picked some kids from West Michigan, and at that time he was a congressman here in Western Michigan, and I think I may have been the only Black kid. I may be wrong. It's been 1,000 years ago. But anyway, they scripted us on what it was that we were supposed to say. And of course, I didn't stick to the script. And when it got to my time to ask him a question, I asked, "Do you like pizza?" Which was not what I was supposed to ask him. And so we remained somewhat friendly. I won't say we were friends, but I would see him over the years and we would have a good laugh about that. And I remember one time I saw him after he had been president. This is years later. And we're traveling from Chicago to Grand Rapids on a narrow body airplane, a Super 80, McDonnell Douglas Super 80, MD-80. And I'm sitting on the arm of his first class seat with Secret Service going crazy. And he's, "Oh, it's just Jon. It's just Jon." So fond memories of our former president, who was the first to acknowledge Black History Month.
Now, you notice that date. I mean, this started in 1926, which nothing was celebrated for African Americans. Matter of fact, it was called Negro Week. Okay, it took Gerald R. Ford, the bicentennial year, 1976, to acknowledge and make sure to put it out there that something happens. We are now in 2022. And guys, here's my question to you. And here's to my question to you, to Muskegon. With all the accomplishments that African Americans have done, or all the accomplishments, should we settle for 1 month of celebrating all the things that we have done? I mean, this is something we have contributed to this society, whether it's America or the whole world. Shouldn't we go farther than celebrating just 1 month? I want to put that question out to the panel today, because let me tell you how I feel. I feel history is history. I feel that you need to tell the truth to people, that there are other people out there than the precious Martin Luther King and Harriet Tubman and so many people that we can name, that they usually Malcolm X and a few people that they taught us about. but there's so many people that have done stuff, but we're cornered, pigeonholed into 1 month and we accept that 1 month, and then you have other people rolling their eyes about that they got to celebrate about this 1 month. And now you have states trying to take information about what African Americans went through away from history books. Gentlemen, that's what we're going to talk about today, people. Jon Convington, you want to address it first?
I don't feel anybody can force me to celebrate Black History 1 month only out of a year. And I think it's up to us to celebrate Black History 365 days a year, because Black history happens to be American history. There would be no America as we know it without us.
I need you to kind of repeat that and why you said that, because I'm with you, but some people might disagree.
Well, no, the facts are the facts. You can disagree with opinions, but you can intelligently disagree with facts. And the facts are the facts. And Blacks fought in the Civil War when it was the 13 British colonies. And that's why we were fighting, so that we could have an America. It was the 13 British colonies. My wife's great-great-great-great-grandfather, Bazabille Norman, was one of those many Blacks that fought in the Civil War. You can Google him, Bazabille Norman. And he fought in the Civil War. And a bunch of other folk fought in the Civil War. But then when you go beyond that, we fought in all the wars. And even beyond that, we helped build this country. There is no disputing that the country was built off of the backs of people who look like you and me. That's a fact.
Including fighting in an American war, the shot heard around the war. So we have been fighting for years. Pastor Melvin Burns.
Yeah, I think, if you call yourself a student of history, whether you're a World War II buff or a Civil War buff, or you're a fan of the great move west and the frontier, if you don't include history of African Americans, your studies are incomplete.
Incomplete.
How do you study World War II or World War I and leave out the Harlem Hellfighters or the Tuskegee Airmen? How do you study the Civil War and you don't learn about Robert Small? So your learning is incomplete. And so I think the context of what Carter Chikwueze started was, we know American history is incomplete.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is, let's start talking about the things we know are left out. And so we moved that almost ahead 100 years later, and we're saying, okay, this information is out there. So as we study history now, it's while I want to celebrate Black History Month as a highlight, but when we talk about studying any of those topics, whether it's religion or science or history, we have to include the contributions of African American people, Black people. Otherwise, your learning is insufficient.
People, I know the people, the eyes that are going up in the air and say, you guys are never satisfied. Why do you guys need a month and all that kind of stuff? We're not asking for a month. What we're asking for is this. History is history, like you said, Pastor Burns. And that if you are a studier of history, then you want all history. You don't take out history. Next thing you start burning books like they did in Germany. History is history, people. And this is what we're saying. There are a lot of people that have done great things for this country, but are not recognized. And we wait for people to address that, or we don't do anything but at all, because we've been taught in school to only celebrate certain names of people and we don't know anything about anything else. But Jon Convington said something that 365 days a year, we should be celebrating what we have done because things happen on the backs of our people. Jon?
No, that's just it. We are Black history, but we're also American history, because America wouldn't be the country that it has become without our contributions. It's just that simple. And whether or not there was a formal celebration, whether or not it was a legal, documented celebration, we know what it is. And it's really up to me to make sure that my kids, and they're all grown now, but my kids and the kids around me and others are aware of our contributions. So I take responsibility for those who I come in contact with to make sure that they have some knowledge of what others have done that came before them, and even those in our local community who helped Muskegon become the community that it's become. There are people like Melvin's dad and Billy Gill and so many others who were on the forefront of equality and justice long before it was fashionable, long before we had social media, long before we had access to a lot of the things that we have access to now. It's important that people know about those people as well, not just those who are famous, if you will, but you've got all these cities in America that local people helped their communities that obviously nationally people wouldn't necessarily know, but we can make sure that they know about those things in our community. So really it's our responsibility, in my opinion, to make sure that those who've gone before us are made aware to others who come after them, that we share with them, this is what so-and-so did back in the 60s. This is what they did back in the 70s, right here in Muskegon County, right here in Kent County, in Grand Rapids, etc., right here in Benton Harbor. We didn't get to where we are. And I'm not saying that we've arrived, but we didn't get to where we are without those local champions doing the work that they did. So it's up to us to make sure that we teach Black history. It's up to us, our responsibility.
The questions are coming up, and people, I want to remind you, slim down your questions, dissertations. We like to get to everything, but we only have an hour to do this. Andre, Pastor McClanahan, how you doing, sir? We're going to get you on the show. He says African and American history are the missing pages of the world history. You cannot talk about or teach world history without the information or the importance of the information of Black people around the world, where there are 3 minutes in the value of they've given to the world. I'm sorry, people. All right.
We agree.
Yeah, we agree. You know, and what we've mostly talked about, American history. You know, again, we call this Black History Month. You know, it didn't start in 1776. It didn't start in 1619. So we talk about Black history. We want to talk about the impact of Black people, being those people we say who originated out of Africa, and the influence they've had on the whole world. So we completely agree.
One of the things he said, like Ivory Morris, who was the first Black fire chief in Muskegon Heights. Yeah. He talked about Sister Evelyn Piggy, first Black woman to graduate from Ackley School of Nursing. There's so much information out there that our kids do not know. And the straight up argument is this: facts are fact. Jon, you said that, right? Facts are facts, truths are truths. We're not talking about speculation, gossip, or myths. What we're saying is history books should not be just controlled by the people that are in charge. Unfortunately, that's the problem. The thing is that history is history. You need to put history in the pages of the book. Now, people are talking about, well, the Civil War statues are more important that we have those statues of General Lee. Wait a minute, hold up. Name a country that you put the losing sides, celebrate the losing sides generals. All right, now, if you want to study the Civil War and that side, yeah, you can do that in a museum. But to have statues and stuff like that, I disagree, guys.
I'm again, and I know all you brothers like reading history. I can't say I'm a fan of destroying statues, but I think history belongs as perspective. When you talk about Thomas Jefferson and George Washington, and when they're framing the Constitution, I also want to know they were owning slaves and having affairs with
exactly.
I want to know the story, because I wonder, what are you thinking when you talk? You talk about all men created equal, but at the same time, you look at somebody different color. You're birthing kids with your name, but you're saying they're not equal. I want to know, because what that does, that informs me about the rest of what you were saying about this country as you were developing. And between that, then that would also told us how this country dealt with Mexico, how we dealt with the Inuits when we got to Alaska, how we dealt with the Native Americans when we went west.
Wow.
And so, but I'm as an individual, I'm curious about how they were thinking and how they, as they read the Bible, as they were, framing, tremendous language in the Constitution, tremendous language. But then at the same time, even looking at women and not even considering them to have any real significant input. And I find it, contradictory, complex, and fascinating just as you read history.
Let's go to Houston, Texas. Michael Anthony Smith says no other country celebrates the losing side. Thank you, Michael Smith. John, you was going to say something at the bottom of it.
No, I was going to say I agree with you, Melvin, and the contradictions and all that stuff. It's fascinating. And a lot of people may not know this, but Thomas Jefferson, I think it was Jefferson, he was one of the main authors, right? There was more than Thomas Jefferson, obviously. There are other people that we don't talk about, but he wrote a paragraph about addressing slavery that was going to be as a part of the Declaration of Independence. And the guys told him, I'm paraphrasing, you done lost your mind. And the only way we will ratify this thing is if that paragraph is taken out. And you can Google it. You can what's the paragraph on slavery that was left out of the Declaration of Independence, and it's there because they were great note keepers. They kept excellent notes about what was happening. A lot of people don't even know that. So when you talk about that, and that was the way of negotiating, because they needed these guys, they needed their vote. So politics has been going on a long time. Okay, you do this, then I'll agree to this. Okay, no, if you leave that in there, no, then I can't vote for that. And that goes way back then to the beginning. But lots of contradictions there. Lots of men, no need for me to echo what Melvin said, but lots of men saying one thing and doing another.
I think
kind of like today.
Right. I think you paraphrased
kind of like our politicians today.
Right. I think you paraphrased it differently. No, they said you done lost your damn mind. That's kind of what they said. Listen,
we got the pastor on.
Listen, it's the bottom of the hour. You're listening and watching Torn in 2. We'll be back after this commercial.
The wait is over. The all-new Umoja Radio Network, home to over 40 Black-owned radio stations and podcasts, is here for you. Connect to the world's fastest-growing collection of unapologetically Black and proud media, from podcasts to independent Black-owned radio stations, and access to the important news and music you need. Umoja Radio is from our culture, by our culture, for our culture. The all-new Umoja Radio Radio is available right now on Google Play and the Apple Store. Join the movement. Be empowered.
I want to go back to that commercial is that if there's any kind of music, any kind of topic, any kind of genre that you want to hear, you're going to want to download that app on your phone. Okay, let's get back to the topic. This is 22 for this February the 4th. It is 20 degrees outside. Today I have my co-host, of course, Pastor Melvin Burns, and my good buddy and longtime host and everything, Jon Convington, to come and talk about this issue of Black history. Black history is everybody's history, correct?
Yes.
You say yes, Melvin. Convince the person sitting on the couch looking at you crazy.
And this is not an original idea, but they've done this thing where they say, well, let's take away all the things that were either invented or patented or improved by African Americans, and you start taking away traffic lights and refrigeration units. And so you start taking those things away from, let's just say, the American culture. Then you take away the music and the art. And you're left probably with a pretty dull country, might still, may not even be industrialized yet.
Even think of blood and blood plasma.
Blood plasma.
It's just across the board.
Yeah.
America would not be the country that it became without Black folks. It just would not be. Now, is that to say for certain that somebody may not have come up with something at some point? I mean, we don't know. It didn't happen. What we do know is that we were there and came through in the most crucial times of this country's development.
Well, and the thing is that as one of you guys addressed is that I think it was Pastor Burns, that when you were talking about the history of Thomas Jefferson and then he owned slaves, and matter of fact, both of your guys' tests come in, both of you are related to Thomas Jefferson. So let you know that.
Now, I'm actually related to a family that was right next to the Jeffersons, in all honesty.
Okay, but let us know all the history, the good, the bad, and different. And the thing is that it is important for our country. And the thing is, it's so important. You're seeing right now why it's important. Why it's important? If you look at all the negative things that are going on in this country, if you look at the lack of knowledge, if you look at all the things that have happened, is happening because of lack of knowledge of our people. Would you agree or disagree? John, you're holding your head.
No, I was just looking up the paragraph that was omitted from the Declaration of Independence. I was going to mention it later, but decades later, Jefferson blamed the removal of that passage about slavery in the Declaration of Independence. He blamed it on delegates from South Carolina and Georgia and northern delegates who represented merchants who were at the time actively involved in the transatlantic slave trade.
Mm-hmm.
Jefferson's original passage on slavery appears below, and I won't read it to you in its entirety. It's just a paragraph, but it starts out, he has waged cruel war against human nature itself, violating its most sacred rights of life and liberty in the persons of a distant people who never offended him, captivating and carrying them into slavery in another hemisphere.
Wow.
That's just part of the paragraph that was omitted. Imagine had that paragraph been a part of the Declaration of Independence. Imagine how things may have been different if that paragraph was a part as specific as it is, that it was a part of the final Declaration of Independence, but yet it was replaced with a very ambiguous paragraph, which, when it's ambiguous like that, then you've got people who can argue that this is what it means. This ain't what it means.
It didn't apply
this
to
is
you.
What it means.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go there today. Pastor Burns, even if you look at the book that we love so dearly, the Holy Bible,
Yes, sir.
that people look at, if we are all created in the image of God,
Yes.
that how some churches and stuff like that have eliminated the things that African Americans done in the Bible.
Yeah. Well, let me start and just say it this way. And you know, as a pastor, as a theologian, there's no element of human society that when we've put our hands to it, we haven't corrupted, including church, including reading the Bible, including what God intends for humanity. You know, it's all corrupted.
Please, I hate to interrupt you, but pass the plate and say that again, sir.
I'm saying everything we've put our human hands to has been corrupted. Everything God intended for humanity is corrupted. And so, you know, and people, you know, whether you want to go back to first Genesis 1 and 2, go back to Genesis 10 and talk about, you know, Noah and his three sons, wherever you want to go in the text, what we see is after what God says he intends, mankind corrupts it. And so we're all living on his grace. But now we look through and I share this, you know, every month we talk about Black history in our church. And this year my theme is, I'm going back to Africa and the early African Christian scholars this year. I'm going to talk about some of them. But, you know, when we look in you know, I've read texts from some of the commentaries where, you know, Bible and where, you know, they've taken text, you know, talking about the curse on Black people. Some of the commentaries that talk about these things not applying. You know, the Bibles they gave slaves, where they, you know, took out, you know, we ain't talking about children come out of Egypt. We're not talking about freedom. You know, we're not talking about all men equal. You know, I forget the percentage. It was like, I think like maybe no less than maybe some like 20-30% of the New Testament was taken out because the Bible is an absolute truth. And what you didn't want to do, and I always tell people when people want to argue about, you know, what the Bible is, when you get the real word of God, you realize there's no way you can support an institution like slavery. There's a way you can look at somebody else and say, I'm superior to this person. But I can tell you about it and distort it, or I can give it to you and distort the things it says and what it means, which is what's happened over the course of human history and mankind, is that we've distorted and corrupted all of it. And so religion doesn't get a pass. Christianity doesn't get a pass. And notice any other religion, in that we've distorted, you know, race is distorted. We've left out the country again. We've left out the contributions of African Americans, even in studying Christian history. Man, I don't know if any of y'all saw that series that on the Black church that Dr. Gates did last year. Man, that was just absolutely, you know, it was a study in American religion, you know, and just it was powerful, it was touching, you know, and you know, when we talk about, you know, whether it's the Reformation movement or the Great Awakening, you know, and when we study Christian history, and then at the same time, I understand there was also something going along happening in the Black community, whether they were slaves or they were free in the North. At the same time, these great things were happening in Christian history. There was also something transpiring, you know, with African Americans and Black people in history also. So that's even left out.
You look at the Azusa Street, what happened there. People don't know about it. Wait a minute, you got a shout out. Amen, Pastor Burns, teach.
You have to give Brother McClanahan on. He's quite a historian in himself, and certainly
he is.
Yes.
Yeah, we're gonna get him on. We're gonna get him on this show. Jon, I know for a fact that I've seen you do this everywhere you go to young people, teaching them about the history of our people. How important is it that we do that?
It's crucial. How do you know where you're going if you don't know where you've been?
Well, come on. You tell us some truth there.
Yeah, knowing our history is important. And when I say history, all of it, just not don't sugarcoat stuff. It's all important. Like when Melvin was talking earlier about he wants to know it all.
That's
When
right.
you were talking about the statues and all that,
Mhm.
you said you weren't necessarily a fan of bringing statues down. Uh, you mentioned that, Melvin. I don't know if you recall
Yeah,
saying that.
yeah, yeah.
I agree. I agree.
Mhm.
I agree with you. It's interesting to hear somebody else that that take on it.
Uh-huh.
But we can talk about that another day.
Yeah,
But anyway, I want to know all of it.
All of it.
Yeah, I want to know all of it. I want to know all of it, and I am a what is the word? Voracious reader, and I am reading with anticipation because I want to see where this is going.
yeah.
Like, okay, who did what there, and then who? Oh, wow! And I'll sometimes even go back in a book if I think that I missed how we got to this point.
Yeah.
And so it's all important, and it's up to us to show young people that it's all important. Like they're looking at us. They're looking. I know the guys, and I'm around. I'm around lots of young people. They're always looking to me. What am I gonna say? How am I gonna respond? What am I thinking about whatever it is that's happening? And it's crucially important. Like I can't stress that enough. How important it is that they know from whence we come.
Yeah.
Let me go to
And
this
we
question
and
here.
our history didn't just start, as Melvin said, it didn't just start in the 13 British colonies
Right.
and then America. It didn't start there. Our history goes back way before we ever made it to this soil,
Wow.
and our
Well,
contributions to the world. And there are things, just real quickly, I think that there are some things mathematically that were done that we did way back when that are the basis for our mathematical system in 2022.
well, which gets us to this question from Fran Ward. Hey, Fran, talk about African American contributions to our country as far as inventions. Wow.
Yeah.
That's what's up. Thank you, Fran.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
somebody that
endless.
should who inventing glasses, because my eyes are terrible. Okay. Um, the contributions, if you were talking earlier about the traffic light and music, if you take Bill Withers, for instance, you know his songs, but do you know about the inventions that he did with airplanes and such? I mean, you can go on. We can spend the next whole month mentioning names and invention and never repeat. We might repeat a name, but if we said the different inventions that they did, it's amazing. So how can you just sit up and say that's not supposed to be in the history books? That's all we're saying. We're not saying we want a free handout. We're not saying we just want everything, the good, the bad, the indifferent, to be in the history books. And if you think I'm crazy, you look at states right now trying to take stuff out of the history books.
Yeah.
It's happening, folks.
Yeah.
Wake up. Plymouth Rock is landing on you as we speak. Why should we, and here's my point, why should we wait to find out that it took women to help the men land on the moon? Why do we have to wait for a movie? Why do we have to find out in Black Judas about that story of what happened in Chicago? Well, what happened? It took a movie.
Yeah.
Shouldn't we know that? Isn't that history? Should we know about that? Some of it's good, some of it's bad, some of it's different, but shouldn't that be taught to all of our kids? I'm going to be you, Pastor Burns,
And
and
you
then
know, part
John,
of it,
you next.
as African Americans, so certainly we're proud of our African American history, and we teach it to our children and everything. But just like you mentioned, the Hidden Figures movie, everybody at NASA knew about that. It wasn't a secret. The astronauts knew about these women. So when we talk about the truth that has to come out, it's not just on us to tell the truth. It's the people who still know the truth, who research this history. When you find it, you can't turn the page and say, "Oh, well, that changes what everything we've known before now," or that's that would no. That history is not making people look good. That's telling the record.
History is history.
Yes,
history is telling the truth about what happened.
Yes, you mentioned Gerald Ford, and everybody I've ever met said what a delightful person he was, just a pleasant man. Now, you juxtapose that to him being the vice president of a very horrible man, but they're both the same person. Someday somebody's going to talk about Melvin Burns. And brothers, I'm going to tell you, there's going to be some chapters of that book. Y'all close your eyes and close your ears. It won't all be good. It won't even start with the word pastor, I can tell you for sure. But some of it'll be the truth. And at this age or not, I'm okay with that.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
And we talk about teaching young people, and I love Brother Covington because he is always teaching, and he always finds a way to get their attention when he talks about Black history. Is this urgency I think we all feel with our younger generation of Black youth to not have to bump their head on every rock.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can teach them the history to say, you might feel like this is the first time this has ever happened, and this is the first time you face some of these challenges, but it really isn't. And not just learn from me, but learn from some generations before me. There's a great entrepreneurial spirit among a lot of our young people.
Right.
So, man, as they're wanting to start their own businesses, man, you better go back and learn what John Johnson went through. Go back and learn what Madam C.J. Walker went through. There might be some nuggets there, you can get for your own life, your own business, because some of the same things that you go up against now, they went up against.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Fran Ward, his story. His story. Go, John.
You mentioned the Bible earlier, and I've been looking for it. That's why my head's been down. I've been looking for a post that I responded to in 2014. December 29th, 2014, Ronnie Cavaness Jr. shared something that a Caucasian lady had written about the Bible and just about Christianity. And she said, I'm not going to read the whole thing, it's rather lengthy, but she said, for Black people to believe in the same God that allowed them to be enslaved shows their level of intelligence. We are living in the age of information. And she's got information in all capital letters, exclamation point. She says, why are they still believers? It makes no sense. We gave Black Christianity because it made them better slaves, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. She goes on and on and on about why we shouldn't believe in Christianity, et cetera. A lot of people are commenting that hadn't done any research, whatever. But then I came along, and this is what I had to say. And I think it was probably 200 or 300 comments. And this is what I had to say to that post. And the lady who had whose picture accompanied the post, she may not have even been the one to do that. We know the misinformation campaign and all that stuff that's been going on since the beginning of time. In Hitler's thing, I forgot what they called it, but they had a name for a corrupt press or something that we heard Trump echo. Or Roger Stone, we heard them echo some of those same things in recent years. But anyway, this is what I wrote about Blacks in the Bible back in 2014. Christianity, a white religion forced on Black folks? ? Sorry, there's absolutely nothing to support that claim. 1, the Bible probably has more Black history in it than the typical Black history class at an HBCU. It mentions historically Black nations such as Ethiopia, Cush, Canaan, and Egypt more than 1,000 times.
Well,
conversely, the European nations Rome 20 times, Greece 30 times, and those things are mentioned just 50 times combined. It mentions Black nations more than 1,000 times. It mentions Rome and Greece about 50 times. These are not exact, but estimates. The scriptures regarding black people are there for a reason. 2 Timothy. Apparently, God in his foreknowledge knew his way of salvation would one day be distorted and tainted by a racial prejudice that led many blacks to believe they were second-class citizens in the eyes of the world and of God himself. Scriptures in Acts 2 and 10. We see men from the African lands of Egypt, Libya, Ryan, is that it? How you pronounce it, Melvin? Serene, present on the day of Pentecost, roughly 1600 years before blacks were enslaved in America. 3 black men listened to Peter preach the gospel. Surely some of them must have been among the 3,000 souls, Acts 2 and 41, who received Christ that day. Remember, that's roughly 1600 years before blacks were enslaved in America. So, for people believing in what they choose to believe, my statements and that were solely based on the matter of the post as it relates to Christianity. So we believe anything without researching it. And the things that I said, I gave you scriptures, you can check them out. So when somebody comes along and says, I don't believe and I'm not a Christian because of this, they're misinformed. This is all stuff that they can research. They can just go to it themselves and check it out. So the Bible says nothing about us being an inferior people.
No.
7 minutes, guys. How do we change? What do we do from where we're at right now?
Read, teach, and learn. Read, teach, and learn. It's not. I think you start with like, do we still need Black History Month? No, we still need Black History Month, and we need to broaden our understanding of history. That's why.
Well, what is about the person? I'm going to throw that softball pitch to you, Pastor Melvin Burns. The person that says, "Well, you don't need a month, and we don't need those months and stuff like that," and you come back and say, "Well, you got 11 months."
It's hard sometimes. I'm exhausted on how to respond to woeful ignorance these days. So I think the best response. Some people are determined. As Brother Covington said, when you present facts, there are some people who are determined that they still don't want to interpret them correctly, or they don't want to see what's in front of them. And so again, if I present history, bona fide history to you, whether it's February, April, September, whatever month I present it to you, March is Women's History Month, I believe. Well, guess what? Women's History Month, are we limited to Black women or white women or Asian? So guess what? Women's History Month come up, guess what? There are going to be some Black women in there. Law Enforcement Month come up in May, guess what? We have some Black law enforcement people in there. When whatever next holiday come up, guess what? Let's make sure we include Black people in those celebrations, in those history, in those moments, so to recognize whatever. Let's make sure we include Black people. When Business Week comes up, let's make sure we include the real history and the contributions of Black people in those.
Before we go to John, when you said read, I mean, we're not just talking about African American. We're talking about if you are a true history buff, everybody, I don't care what your skin color is, if you want to know the good, bad, the indifferent, study and find out the truth. John.
I agree. You can't really celebrate American history, regardless of what that particular month is, without celebrating Black history. We are intertwined with the fabric of this country. Black folks, we are intertwined with the fabric of every being of this country as it relates to contributions.
We had another question. We had Michael from Houston, Texas. It's all Republican Party. Not necessarily so, sir. I'll talk to you about that one because at first we were Republicans. I'll talk to you about that later. Next question. Education begins at home. Absolutely. Never ending.
Yes, absolutely. I want to comment on our sister's comment. And that's what we said at the beginning of this. It's really up to us. It's up to us. What are we doing? What are we going to do? It's okay to view and acknowledge what others aren't doing as it relates to us as a people. I believe in all of that. I believe in that. But that does not allow me to not take some responsibility in what it is that I'm doing or not doing. I look at me first. What am I doing or what am I not doing? What should I be doing as it relates to this topic, as it relates to this subject?
Time out, Jon. Time out, Jon. Please say that again for somebody that just turned on the radio.
We're talking about Black history. And what have you done if you're listening to me, if you're listening to my voice, or you're watching me on camera? What have you done to make sure that somebody else is informed? We always talk about what other people are doing or not doing. That does not give you or me a pass. We still need to do the work that we're supposed to do, period. And the last thing I want to say is we talked about Muskegon or West Michigan. Maybe next year this time, maybe we do need to have compiled a book of Black history as it relates to West Michigan. And then we distribute that book. I know that we can get some support in doing that if that's something that we're going to make happen. I forgot who it was at the beginning of the show who talked about, Andre McClanahan, my little brother. He talked about some of those contributions, and he mentioned some people. We've got a slew of people that we've not personally made sure people in our community know about, the 20-something-year-olds. There's no reason why we should not have done that by now. But since you guys brought it up and we're having this conversation, maybe that's something that we need to work on for the next 10 months to make that happen.
That's a great idea, because there are so many things that we had an interview, a guy from Connecticut, racism through blue eyes, I believe. And he knew the history in Connecticut, where he lived, of everything, white and Black. He knew the history and can report it. If you look at Joe Lane, he did a series and was doing another series on racism this summer, trying to talk to people about history. There are a few people out there, but the question comes back to what Jon said. What have you done lately? Pastor Burns.
I would just echo that, and what Sister Threadgill said. And I know she grew up in a home, certainly where she learned a lot of Black history. But again, in your home, what do you do? What do you teach? Do you have books? Do you read? Do you watch? There's not excuse nowadays. There's documentaries, there's specials at your fingertips. Maybe there's just a subject you're interested in. You can just go by subject rather than just the whole of Black history. So there's really not an excuse. But what do you do to teach it, to tell it? Again, we're parents, and I know I enjoy talking to my daughter, who's a lot younger sometime, when our 38-year age difference, about, some of my experiences versus some of her and her friends. And that leads to other discussions, where, hey, maybe you ought to read this or look at this person. But we've got a responsibility, and I know we all, I know you guys have that same sense of, man, we got to make sure this next generation gets this, man. I just feel it's urgent. We've let some, you say that about West Michigan, we've let some people leave here without getting their story, Brother Covington. We really have.
Yeah, we have some people that
we need to change that.
Yeah,
there are some people that led the way in a lot of things.
We need to stop that right now. This is where that should end.
Yeah,
we should not be having this conversation again a year from now, and then others have gone on who've made major contributions to our community in West Michigan.
Yes.
What we're trying to say, people, is, as I say this as the show has to end, is look, history is history. Good, bad, or indifferent. Let history be taught. The truth be taught in the books and not segregated or subject to your opinion. Guys, we're out of time already. I want to thank my co-host Melvin Burns, Pastor Melvin Burns, and my good friend Jon Convington. Guys, I'm gonna have you guys. We got Black History all week. We'll see you in maybe we'll do this the last week. You've been listening and watching 22. Take care, guys. Thank you so much. God bless.
Bye now.
When smoking gives you COPD, you learn to lie a little bit. You make up excuses like, I have to get my keys. You guys go on. Anything so you can walk at your own pace. I used to do that all the time. Those lies don't work anymore. My tip is, the worst lies are the lies you tell yourself. Like smoking isn't that dangerous.
You can quit. For free help, visit cdc.gov/tips.
Only God can make that happen.
Hey, he just said we just got to be willing and obedient. He'll let it happen.
I tell you, after all that stuff that happened, every time it's like God used us. Let us do your will, and He fills us with it. It was a good show.
Yes. So you got a lot of people, a lot of comments, good feedback.
It's all right. I caught it though.
You got it. All right, sorry.
We're not still live. We're not still live, are we?
Oh no. She told me to do something. I have to wait to be brought up, and I keep forgetting about it.
Yeah.
But
Look, brother, I got to get moving.
all right. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We'll talk later. Okay.
I'll talk to you later because I got a lot to talk to you about.
Okay. We'll do that.
All right. Take care.
Bye now.
Bye.